Can only one detail in the suspension change the fate of a whole season? Ferrari has implemented a modification in the SF-25 so extreme that some engineers believe that this evolution could be the turning point they needed. Are we facing a master coup, or one last desperate play? During the first 12 races of the 2025 season, Ferrari has remained in an area of constant frustration. The team occupies the second position of the championship with 222 points, but that figure, far from reassuring, highlights an uncomfortable truth. They are more than 230 points from a McLaren that has managed to join speed, reliability, and constant development. This abysmal distance is not a product of bad luck or sporadic failures. It is the reflection of a car that, although it has potential, has been unable to operate within its narrow and complex performance window. This is added structural problems. The SF-25 suffers from aerodynamic rebound when it tries to operate with more aggressive minimum heights, which prevents taking advantage of its theoretical aerodynamic load. In addition, brakes and tires temperatures usually get out of control, especially in long batches or in traffic conditions. In Silverstone, a circuit that historically allows us to reveal the true capacity of the cars, Ferrari touched background. Hamilton ended almost 40 seconds from the leader, while Leclerc described his experience as one of the most difficult careers of his life. His words were not a simple emotional download, but the finding that the car does not behave as it should, even in the hands of experienced pilots. In this context, the pressure on Maranello has reached critical levels. With Spa-Francorchamps just around the corner and a summer pause that could be used to reassess the entire technical project, Ferrari made a bold decision: to use one of its valuable days of filming day in Mugello, not to generate marketing content, but to validate the most radical modification of the SF-25 to date. This maneuver reflects the despair of a team that knows that continuing in the same technical line will not reach them to compete for victories, much less by championships. The Scuderia can no longer afford errors. Last season they closed seconds in the World Cup in builders, consolidating a return to the elite after years of frustration. But that position, obtained with a solid car like the SF-24, has left a very high rod that the SF-25 has not been able to match. The pressure of the Italian media, the impatience of the Tifosi fans, and the fact of having a 7-time world champion like Hamilton in their ranks make each false step feel like a scandal. If the SF-25 does not change now, it could be too late to save the 2025 campaign. What Ferrari has implemented at the rear of the SF-25 is not simply a half-year update. It is a surgical redesign that redefines how the rear suspension interacts with the gearbox, the flat background, and the general aerodynamics of the car. At first glance, it might seem a lower modification, a small relocation in the anchoring of the front leg of the upper trapeze. However, the potential impact is colossal. This new design anchors said paw a few centimeters below in a reinforced gearbox crankcase, which completely alters the way the car responds to the acceleration and manages the dynamic balance. The modification seeks to enhance the so-called anti-quat effect, a technical solution that allows the car not to sink during acceleration. This sinking, although it may seem lower, generates substantial alterations in the angle of attack of the diffuser, on the aerodynamic platform, and in the management of the airflow under the car. When minimizing it, the SF-25 can maintain a more constant posture, which means greater stability, better traction in the exit of curves, and above all, a more predictable platform for the pilots. This is crucial for a car that has proven to have an operating window so narrow that any deviation compromises its competitiveness. But there does not end the impact of the redesign. This new suspension geometry also allows rear height without jeopardizing the integrity of the flat background. In particular, it allows to operate at lower heights without causing the wear of the central tablet, that key piece of the regulation that, if it erodes more than allowed, leads to an automatic disqualification. This is not a distant theory. In China, Ferrari suffered exactly that sanction, which motivated a radical change in its technical approach. With this redesign, the Scuderia intends to avoid not only the sanctions, but also to gain pure performance thanks to a more efficient and close aerodynamic load. And for this new assembly to work, the crankcase of the gearbox was structurally reinforced, using a widening carbon reinforcement in key areas that must now support greater loads. This change contributed only 300 grams of additional weight, a minimum price considering the gain in torsional stiffness, essential to improve the precision of the rear train. This type of rigidity not only benefits the curve response, but also allows you to tuning even more about, something that Ferrari engineers value greatly for technical circuits such as Spa-Francorchamps. The first simulation data in CFD, computational fluid dynamics, and dynamic bank are promising, between 2 and 3/10 per lap, a figure that for Maranello considers even conservative. If the new suspension allows the back of the car between 3 and 4 millimeters without compromising the durability of the background, the impact in the race could be even greater. And most importantly, this gain comes without compromising other areas of the car, which makes it one of the cleanest evolutions from the technical efficiency point of view. This redesign is therefore a Ferrari master play. It is the type of innovation that not only responds to an urgent need, but can also mark a turning point in the season. Ferrari has done this without noise, without exaggerated communications, and without leaks. He simply proved it in silence in Mugello, during a filming day used for purely technical purposes. That decision already speaks of the level of urgency and trust that the team has in this solution. And now, with Spa on the horizon, a circuit where aerodynamic efficiency and braking stability are fundamental, the table is served if this technical bet finally manages to put the SF-25 in the position that its pilots and engineers have sought since the season began. What is at stake for Ferrari in Spa-Francorchamps goes far beyond adding points or climbing in the championship. This technical evolution not only represents a possible solution to their mechanical problems, but a frontal statement that they can still reins of their destination in the 2025 season. After a series of frustrating careers with strategic errors, structural problems, and a demanding internal dynamic, Ferrari arrives in Belgium in the hope of changing the narrative. And that hope rests almost completely about the effectiveness of its new rear suspension. For Charles Leclerc, this may be time to recover his undisputed leader status within the team. If the car responds and he manages to extract the maximum performance, he could be in a position to fight for victories and demonstrate that his experience in Ferrari is not a wasted talent story. For Lewis Hamilton, on the other hand, this race is even more crucial. His arrival to Ferrari generated an unprecedented media wave in the modern era of F1. His name, his legacy, and experience were seen as the final piece to turn Ferrari into world champions again. But so far, that alliance has been more symbolic than effective. Spa offers you the first real opportunity to show that the decision to leave Mercedes was not only an emotional movement, but a strategic play with success potential. And while the pilots are the ones who materialize the battle on the track, behind them there is a technical group, led by Frédéric Vasseur, which has played much more than an update. This evolution is also a proof of faith in your own project. After a pre-season where McLaren seemed to take advantage on all fronts and a bull-wobstery but always dangerous red, Ferrari has tried to stay in the fight with weapons that, until now, did not finish sharpening. This new suspension can be the first concrete evidence that the team is learning from its mistakes and building on a basis that, although unstable, remains competitive. In Maranello, it is not enough to improve, you have to win. And if this evolution does not deliver tangible results in Spa, the margin to maneuver will be reduced dramatically. The summer break will be transformed into an internal battlefield, with inevitable questions about the base design of the SF-25, the technical direction and strategic planning of the rest of the season. Therefore, this race is not one more. It is the definitive filter between a Ferrari that can still dream of titles, and a Ferrari that resigns to fight for honor. In Formula One, details are not small. A minimum variation in an anchor, a strategic decision taken in a filming day, or even a couple of millimeters at the height of the body can make the difference between victory and irrelevance. And what Ferrari has executed with this new suspension of the SF-25 is not just one more attempt. It is the type of play that defines seasons, races, and, in some cases, to complete sports races. Because when a team like Ferrari decides to take a risk of this magnitude, it does it because it has reached a point where to continue the same is more dangerous than changing. This technical evolution will not be evaluated only by chronometers or podiums. He will be judged according to the impact that he has on the morale of the team, on the synergy between engineers and pilots, and about the narrative that will accompany Ferrari for the rest of the year. Will they be remembered for being brave enough to try when everything seemed lost? Or for having made the mistake of betting the whole for an improvement that did not finish working? The world will be observing in Spa. Not only fans but also the rest of the paddock. Rivals like McLaren, who have dominated with an enviable constancy. Red Bull, who tries to contain an internal crisis while pursuing results with Verstappen. And Mercedes, which silently begins to cut distance. Everyone knows that a strong Ferrari transforms the championship, electrifies it. And if this technical evolution is consolidated, it can rewrite not only the fate of this season, but the competitive dynamics of the entire grille. Now the question remains in the air. Is this suspension the turning point that Leclerc and Hamilton needed to release the true potential of the SF-25? Will we be about to witness Ferrari's rebirth when I needed it most? Or are we simply seeing the last act of a work that did not find its course? I invite you to leave your opinion below. Do you think this modification can change everything, or is it just one more patch about a structural problem? Would you trust this engineering commitment as Ferrari has done?